This morning, I want to promote an Advent Bible study that's being led through the National Church. It starts this Wednesday, 4 p.m. Mountain Time, and it'll be over Zoom. It's not too late to join. You just need to go to the Presbyterian Church website and you can find the links there to register. I've signed up myself, and it'll be great to have someone to chat about it with. It'll be led by Dr. Lee Johnson. She's the Education Program Coordinator for the PCC. And the title of the study is Jesus' Birth and Childhood Stories, the Well-Worn, the Weird, and the Wonderful. And it's going to look at the variety of nativity stories that we have about Jesus' birth. You know that we have 4 different Gospels: Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Well, each of those have a slightly different way that they talk about Jesus' birth. John doesn't even talk about it at all, for example. In our nativity sets, in our children's Christmas pageants, all those stories tend to get blurred and blended together, understandably so. But when we do that, we miss details. There are important, unique points of view that each of the Gospels is trying to make. This Advent, we will slow down to look at these stories more closely and to better pay attention to what the Spirit is saying today. As part of that study, however, we're also going to be looking at stories about Jesus that aren't included in the Bible. Ooh. We call them the apocryphal Gospels. Now, the early church debated which stories and letters and Gospels would become part of the Bible as we know it today. And they included in that all that they felt was essential to faith. One reason they had to do this, however, is because there was a lot of other stuff at the time being written about Jesus. Most of those writings were lost, but in the late 1880s, some of those proto-Gospels were being rediscovered. Scholars always knew of these Gospels, that wasn't a surprise, but it wasn't until the 19th century that we actually had texts available to be reading ourselves. One of those is the Infancy Gospel of Thomas. So our Bible study is going to be looking at that apocryphal gospel and see if it says anything that we think might be useful today. Here is Dr. Lee Johnson talking about what we will learn this week.
So the first week we'll take up the Infancy Gospel of Thomas, and it's actually got a number of very short little stories that talk about Jesus as a child. And I find this interesting because there's really nothing, between Jesus' birth in the 4 Gospels and the time that he's at 12. There's one story in Luke about Jesus being 12 in the temple, but then that's it. There's nothing else in those first 12 years. And this Infancy Gospels Thomas has these little tales about Jesus in this stretch of time that nothing from the canonical Gospels is written. And so people find that they're somewhat funny. They're definitely weird. But what we'll do when we read these writings that didn't get accepted is think about what do they say about Jesus? What kinds of things are they projecting? Is it something that verifies his identity as the Son of God? Is it something that humanizes him? Is it something that is kind of in agreement with what you see in the gospel stories? Or is it something that is really in stark disagreement with what you see in the gospel stories? And so what we'll pay attention to is all of that. How does it present Jesus? And so part of what we think about with these writings is what kind of community is promoting Jesus in this way? And are they doing it, as this is their statement of belief, or is this a fantasy writing? This is what we imagine Jesus would have been like. And so that's part of what we do with these non-canonical writings. So the first week will be talking about the apocryphal writings, the history of them. And a part of that is the history of the canon. Where did we get the original writings that now we say these are the ones that are the Bible. How did that all happen? That's part of the discussion.
If this piques your interest, let me know. There are some readings we need to do to prepare for the class, but I can send all of those to you. I think it's going to be a great way to start reflecting on what Jesus' birth means for us today.